Okay, welcome students to another session of political science class with me, and in this session we'll continue from the previous session. Okay, that is we are dealing on chapter 10, that is making of the constitution, and today we'll start from where we have left. Okay, in the previous session we have started with the Constituent Assembly, right? We have discussed the composition, we have discussed the structures, who were represented there. Okay, here we'll talk about deliberations of the Constituent Assembly. What talks were made, okay? What were the discussion? What debates? What are the important topic they discuss in this Constituent Assembly, okay? So it is under the deliberation of the Constitution, page 99 on your text, okay? Okay, the Constituent Assembly, it had its first sitting, okay, that is the first meeting, it is known as first sitting. This was done on December 1946, okay, 9th December 1946. In this first sitting, Dr. Sachin Dananda Sinha, okay, Dr. Sachin Dananda Sinha, he was the interim president, okay, in this Constituent Assembly. He was the oldest member also. Now, interim president means it is a non-permanent, okay, before a president has been elected, he was the president. So in this first sitting, they discussed and they went on to elect Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the permanent president. So on the 11th of December 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, he was elected as the permanent president of the Constituent Assembly. Now, although the Constituent Assembly, they started deliberations from December 1946, they got the prominence or they got recognitions only after India got her independence in August 1947. Okay, now the Assembly's decision to adopt a parliamentary form of government or a federal form of government, the present system of government that we are following right now, it was not taken in a day. Okay, there were a lot of discussion, debates were done, different views were given. Okay, now questions were also raised on, should India have a centralized parliamentary form of government, or should India go and follow the this panchayati-based system, that is the Gandhian style of government? That was the first question raised. Okay, what type of government would India follow? Now, questions were also raised on, should the right to property be made a fundamental right? Okay, in the initial phase, the right to property, it was a fundamental right, but at present, it is deleted. Okay, don't get confused. In the initial phase, it was the right, okay, it was our right, fundamental right, but now it is being deleted. Okay, now questions on universal adult suffrage were also debated. Now, when I say universal adult suffrage, it is something to do with right to vote, yeah, dealing with your elections. Now, on this issue, that is the universal adult suffrage, it says that not much debates were taken. And you know why, right? From the beginning, okay, before India got independence, the leaders or the framers of the Constitution, they wanted to have a democratic form of government, no matter what, okay? Be it presidential or be it parliamentary form of government, democratic system was what they want to adopt. So in a democratic system, right to vote, it is the most important feature, right? So to adopt this or the issue on universal suffrage, there was not much debate, okay? It was adopted by all the leaders, okay, without much debate. Now, it is said that the Constituent Assembly, okay, it took nearly 3 years, okay, 3 years to frame the Indian Constitution, where there were around 250 members. Now, out of 250 members, 200 members, they were frequently present in discussion. Okay, so this shows that the Assembly did a commendable job in framing or in enacting a constitution for free India. Okay, now what are the procedures followed? Okay, procedures followed in the Constituent Assembly. What were the steps taken? Okay, now under here, remember that the Constituent Assembly, it had 8 major committees, okay, different type of committees. Now these committees, they were to have discussion, or they were focused in 8 different areas, and they have to focus in depth. Okay, in your text it has given Some of the names, for example, they were Advisory Committee, Union Subject Committee, Union Committee were also there. Now, Provincial Constitution Committee was also there. Drafting Committee were also there. Now, all these committees, okay, excluding the Drafting Committee, okay, all these committees, the chairman were either Nehru, okay, Rajendra Prasad, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, or even Sardar Patel, okay. These prominent personalities, they were the chairman of these 7 major committees. Now, when we talk about the Drafting Committee, it has a permanent chairman. The chairman was B.R. Ambedkar. Okay, now we'll talk about the Drafting Committee. The chairman, B.R. Ambedkar. The topic, Drafting Committee. Now, the Drafting Committee, it is the most important committee of all the 8 major committees. Okay, the chairman is B.R. Ambedkar. Okay, when you look at the historical background of B.R. Ambedkar, he got education from Bombay and went on to have a higher studies from the Columbia University, that is New York. Okay. Now, B.R. Ambedkar, he was a very gifted person. Okay. With his high intellect, he was chosen as the chairman of the Drafting Committee. Now, we also know that after India's independence, in the Nehru's first cabinet, he was the law minister. Okay. Now, it is this Drafting Committee headed or chaired by B.R. Ambedkar, the most important committee under the Constituent Assembly. Now, point number 2, date of enactment and adoption of the Constitution. Now, the draft committee, okay, the Drafting Committee, they prepared a draft, that is like a Xerox copy, okay. Now, they prepared a draft and they present it to the masses or to the people on the 26th of February 1948. Now, the moment they presented the draft, that is how they are making the Constitution, thousands of communication takes place. People started raising their views and opinions. Okay. Now, it is saying that both public, private individuals, lawyers, okay. Now, lawyers, judges, they started to give views and opinions to the draft that was published. Okay. Now, finally, the Drafting Committee, after taking all these views and opinions, they finally they revised the draft constitution, and finally they brought up the constitution, which was enacted and adopted on the 26th of November 1949. All right, so this is the date, okay? It was enacted and adopted on the 26th of November 1949. Now, point number 3, it says date of commencement of the Constitution, the importance of January 26. Now, the Constitution, it came into force on the 26th of January 1950. Okay, don't get confused with this dates and with this year. It was adopted in 26 November and the actual working, okay, the actual working, it started from this 26th of January 1950. It was this date when this Dr. Rajendra Prasad first term as the president started. Okay, now this date, 26 January, that's why it is celebrated as Republic Day every year by the people of India. Okay, so these are the 3 important points under the deliberations of the Constituent Assembly. Okay, the next subtopic, the sources of the Constitution. Now, when we talk about the Constitution, okay, when we talk about the sources of the Constitution, 4 things comes to our mind. Okay, 4 points. Now, before we go there, the text has raised a question saying authority or source of the Constitution. Who drafted the Constitution? That is the question raised. Authority or source of the Constitution. Who drafted the Constitution? Okay, who drafted the Constitution? Is this the Constituent Assembly, the Drafting Committee, or B.R. Ambedkar, or all of these? What will your answer be? Okay, the answer is the people of India. Okay, none of this committee, not the Constituent Assembly, not the Drafting Committee, nor B.R. Ambedkar. It is the people of India. Okay, the answer is the people of India. Okay, when you look at the Constitution, we come across the preamble, right? The preamble is not given in your text, but it has given some historical background. Now, the opening words of the preamble, that is, we the people of India. That's your answer. Okay, Now here we say that the word proclaimed that the people of India is the constituent makers. Okay, it is not a gift from the British Parliament. It is the people through their elected representative who gave or who were present in the Constituent Assembly. Okay, now this Constituent Assembly, the members were of high intellect. They represented our views and aspiration in the Constituent Assembly. They took all these views, opinions, okay, they discussed it, and that is how they put the voices of the masses of the people in the Constitution. Okay, the Constituent Assembly, in short, it represented all sections of this region as well as the people. Yeah, that is why it is also known as mini India, representing all regions of the sections of the society. So the answer who drafted the constitution, it is the people of India. Okay, don't get confused with that. Now the 4 points, okay, under the source of the Indian constitution. The first is the heritage of national movement. Okay, when India got independence in 1947, after a long struggle, the freedom fighters, okay, the freedom fighters and the national heroes, they have a strong influence or they have a strong impact in the constitution making process. For example, the parliamentary form of government that we are following, this was what the freedom fighters, they longed for many years. Okay, for example, in the Nehru report of 1928, okay, Nehru's report of 1928, the parliamentary form of democracy, this was there. Okay, the freedom fighters, they wanted to have a parliamentary form of government, and that was expressed in 1928. So for a long time, they wanted to have this form of government, and it is at present we are following. So this is one of the heritage of the national or the freedom struggle movement. Point number 2, it's talking about secularism. When I say secularism, is something to do with religion, yeah, freedom of religion. Why did India adopt this secularism? India, she faced partition, right? And this partition was based on communal lines, that is based on religion, Hindus and Muslims. Now India saw the ugly side of religion. That's why India went on to adopt secularism. Okay, when the constitution came into force on the 26th of January 1950, okay, it says that there will be no discrimination on ground of religion or race. Now this is one of our fundamental rights. Okay, the citizens were given the right to freely profess, practice and propagate religion. Alright, so point number 2, India adopted secularism, that is freedom of religion. Point number 3, in the Congress session of 1931, okay, the Congress session of 1931, they adopted this fundamental rights and economic policy. Now, fundamental rights, it's there in the present constitution, yeah? And economic policy, some of the features are there in the directive principle of state policy. Now, these two, that is fundamental right and directive principle of state policy, these two, there is a different chapter, that is in the next chapter. We have a detailed information on this, so I will not go detailed in this too. Okay, now this feature, that is fundamental rights and the social economic policies, these two went on to become part 3 and part 4 of the Indian Constitution. Part 3 dealing with fundamental rights and part 4 dealing with the directive principle of state policy. Okay, now point number 4, it's dealing with leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and B.R. Ambedkar, who fought for the rights of the untouchability. Okay. Now, with India got independence, and these features, that is equality and justice, did made way for the abolition of untouchability. Okay. Now, the state were also given. Okay. The states are also given. They are being directed to protect. Okay. To protect the welfare and to uplift the weaker sections of the society. And at present, untouchability is abolished, and they have given this right, that is right to equality and right to justice, so as to fight, so as to uplift the weaker sections of the society. Finally, okay, the last point, the leaders who fought for India's independence. Okay, they also advocated for world peace. They wanted to have peace with the world. Okay, now the leaders, they opposed imperialism, and the other one is racial discrimination. Imperialism, why? Because India was under the control of the British, right? Now, racial discrimination. You all know how Mahatma Gandhi faced racial discrimination in South Africa, right? So these were the two principles that the leaders of the national movement rejected, okay? They do not want to have these two. Now, leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, okay, leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Aurobindo Ghosh, they say that national interest and internationalism should go side by side. What do you mean by national interest? National interest here is referring to the interest of India, okay, what they wanted to become, what they want to achieve, or what they want to propagate, okay, this is the national interest. When I say internationalism, it means something to do with India's relations with her neighboring countries, okay, and also outside countries like US, Russia, and China. This is something to do with internationalism. The leader says that this internationalism and national interest, these two should go side by side. There should be balance, okay. India should not only focus her interests, okay, and lift out having good relations with the neighboring countries, okay, because these neighboring countries, until and unless there is a peaceful relations, India will not have a peaceful political stability, right? At present, India is in conflict with China, yeah, and even in Pakistan. So this shows that India should have or should maintain a balance between national interests and internationalism. On the other hand, while following internationalism, India should not lower her national interests. Okay, it should go hand in hand. So this is the final point. Okay, first point, it talks about the heritage of national movement. Second, it's talking about secularism, freedom of religion. Third, it's talking about the fundamental rights. Fourth, it's taught about untouchability. And the last point, national interest and internationalism. So these are some of the sources to the Indian Constitution. Okay. Now, apart from these sources, the framers of the Indian Constitution, they also borrowed some sources from the outside countries. Okay. Now, it's there in your page 104. Okay. It is clearly given there what are the sources that the freedom fighters, they borrowed from the other constitution. Okay, for example, India borrowed the parliamentary form of government from the British country, right? And from the United States, the office of the vice president, something to do again, the Bill of Rights. Okay, these are the features that India borrowed. And when we talk about Canada, India borrowed federalism, okay? Federalism system, federal system, where the power is distributed between the union and the state. Now, the French Constitution. India borrowed the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. These were also the slogans of the French Revolution. Yeah. Then the Irish Constitution, from the Irish country, India borrowed the principle of directive principle of state policy. Okay. So these are some of the sources that India borrowed from the outside countries. Okay. So with this, we'll end this session. Okay. In this session, we have discussed the deliberation, the talks, the debates that took place in the Constituent Assembly, what were the steps taken to frame the Indian Constitution, and lastly, the sources, the views from India as well as some of the sources from another country. Okay, so with this, we'll end this session.